All right, guys, this is chapter 5, Hester at her needle. And first of all, one thing to take note of is Hester at her needle. So this is a symbol that we're going to see a little bit throughout this book about Hester, and she's always like working on weaving of some sort. And she becomes very industrious and useful to the community because of this. But some critics would say that Hester and her needle is a synonym of Hawthorne and his art of writing. So as you see Hester weaving and needling, think about how we as writers, and even Hawthorne as a writer, needles words into being. Okay? And if you're probably confused about what needling is basically fusing or putting together two pieces of fabric and using the needle, like a needle and a thread, to bring them together. Okay? All right. So here we go with the reading. We are going to start right at the beginning. So Hester Prynne's term of confinement was now at an end. Her prison door was thrown open, and she came forth into the sunshine, which, falling on all alike, seemed to her sick and morbid ears, as if meant for no other purpose than to reveal the scarlet letter on her breast. Perhaps there was a more real torture in her first unattended footsteps from the threshold of the prison, than even in the procession and spectacle that have been described, where she was made the common infamy, at which all mankind was summoned to point its finger. Then she was supported by an unnatural tension of the nerves, and by all the combative energy of her character, which enabled her to convert the scene into a kind of lurid triumph. It was moreover a separate and insulated event, to occur but once in her lifetime, and to meet which, therefore, reckless of economy, she might call up the vital strength that would have sufficed for many quiet years. The very law that condemned her, a giant of stern features, but with vigor to support, as well as to annihilate, in his iron arm, had held her up through the terrible ordeal of her ignominy. But now, with this unattended walk from her prison door, began the daily custom, and she must either sustain and carry it forward by the ordinary resource of her nature, or sink beneath it. She could no longer borrow from the future to help her through the present grief. Tomorrow would bring its own trial. With it, so would be the next day, and would the next. Each its own trial, and yet the same that was now so unutterably grievous to be borne. The days of the far-off future would toil onward, still with the same burden for her to take up, and bear along with her, but never to fling down. For the accumulating days and added years would pile up their misery upon the heap of shame. Throughout them all, giving up her individuality, she would become the general symbol at which the preacher and moralist might point, and in which they might vivify, embody their images of woman's frailty and sinful passion. Thus, the young and pure would be taught to look at her with the scarlet letter flaming on her breast. At her, the child of honorable parents, at her, the mother of a babe that would hereafter be a woman, and her, who had once been innocent as the figure, the body, the reality of sin, and over her grave the infamy that she must carry thither would be her only monument. All right, so we see here that she emerges from the jail up here. We see up here that she emerges from the jail, and now she is looking outward, and she's thinking about the future. And she's basically thinking it's pretty bleak. There's a lot of shame heaped upon her, and now she is going to be a symbol that pastors and preachers and moralists will use to say, hey, look at that Hester Prynne. She embodies sin, right? And so she's going to be a sign of immoral behavior. Okay, and I think that's kind of a hard thing for, obviously anybody would be. All right. So before I wanted to end this video, I wanted to say apparently this video is brought to you by Zulily. Okay, I'm not getting any endorsements, but this is the best screenshot I can get, and unfortunately we have an ad on there. Up to 75% off. That's pretty amazing. All right. Well, this ends this video. I'll talk to you later.